Hey guys, it's Kevin in my review for the first season of the highly anticipated YouTube Red show, Cobra Kai. And what Cobra Kai is essentially about is basically this takes place 30 years after the events of the Karate Kid Part 3, and we center on two characters. One, of course, is Johnny Lawrence, and he is someone who is very much down in his rut. He really isn't sensing much direction. That is until he runs into these bullies that are picking on this kid, and he ends up demonstrating some karate skills on them, and this kid, Miguel, is impressed by it, so he decides to make Miguel his, basically his protege, and he's going to be his sensei. Meanwhile, we follow Daniel LaRusso, who has had much more success. He is now a car salesman, and he hasn't really done anything karate related in quite some time, but when he finds out that Johnny is now recruiting all these different students, he tries to do what he can to shut it down and basically tries to get back into karate, basically one-up him, and basically their old rivalry continues, and that's all I'm going to say. So, Cobra Kai in general, here's the thing with this show. Two things. One, you guys have to understand that you may be surprised that it wasn't in my honorable mentions list when I did the summer shows, and that's because I wasn't really that hyped for it. It just seemed like a very unnecessary show that is part of this, nostalgia train that we're all kind of on that doesn't seem to be leaving the station anytime soon. The original Karate Kid, I've only seen the first one, and it's good. I don't think it's anything amazing. I think it is a very by-the-numbers sort of sports movie that we've seen a million times, but I understand for the time it was very influential, it was very successful and things like that. I totally get that, Ralph Macchio, Pat Morita, they're great in the film, but just in general, I'm not the biggest fan of it. I actually did see the first two episodes along with the Karate Kid movie when they did the fan events and things like that, and like I said, I really wasn't expecting much from the show, but I have to say, coming out of it, while I was initially impressed with the first, few episodes, this show for me actually got better and better as it went on. Eventually, Cobra Kai turned out to be a damn good series. I really enjoyed this first season. I think this is easily the biggest surprise of the entire summer for me, and I definitely really did enjoy what we got here overall, but let's just get into the show, starting off with the cast. Now, going into the series, I'm sure one of the biggest things that most people are looking forward to is the original cast members coming back, particularly the two main leads. Of course, we have to talk about the one that everyone was hyped for, and that's Ralph Macchio, of course, as Daniel LaRusso, who is still great here. He still does a really great job in this role. You still do care about Daniel, but Daniel is a little bit different now. He's much richer. He has a family of his own. He is just much more successful. So, while we do care about Daniel, we don't feel as bad for him. We know exactly who he is, so he is rootable in that sense, but you also see that he does have a much more successful life, and I think he did do a good job with that overall. And throughout the season, you see Daniel, he's honestly just as lost as Johnny. He kind of has to, remember, training with Mr. Miyagi and things like that, and I think he definitely did a really great job here. He is a very likable and very charismatic actor, and I think he just did a very good job. I was a little bit worried he was going to be phoning it in, but honestly, he really gave it his all, and I was very impressed by him here. However, easily the standout of this entire show is William Zabka as Johnny Lawrence, because here's the thing. While Johnny Lawrence is a character that was across all of the Karate Kid films, which, like I said, I only really saw the first one, we never really got into his worldview. We never really got into who Johnny Lawrence really is, and since we know Daniel LaRusso, it would make sense to really flesh out Johnny Lawrence, and they do an incredible job with that. He actually goes through the biggest transformation out of everyone. He starts off the season, and he's very mean-spirited. He doesn't really understand society. He's very behind in that. He doesn't really have much of a life. But he also does have a lot of regrets. He He's someone who was very popular in high school, and he just isn't as much anymore. And people don't really take him very seriously. They kind of see him as a bit of a joke. And you see how him restoring Cobra Kai, this actually does give him purpose. This gives him a newfound sense of hope. And I really did enjoy that about his character. I think he did a really great job here. He's very funny, but he also is actually very sympathetic. And I was very surprised with how fleshed out his character really was. And I gotta say, he did an incredible job here. And then everyone else here I thought also was really great. Courtney Handler as Daniel's wife, Amanda. She is really great here. You know, she kind of runs the car dealership with him, and I actually really did like their relationship. There are times where she's a bit snooty, and we'll get into that, but I did think she overall did a really good job. Xolo Maridueña as Miguel. I loved this character. This is basically the Daniel to Johnny's Mr. Miyagi, pretty much. They have that sort of back and forth, but Miguel doesn't nearly go in the direction you think he's going to, and I was honestly very surprised with where they did take this character, because he starts off and he is kind of a wimp. He has no interest in doing karate whatsoever. He doesn't even really know how to defend himself, and the transformation he undergoes, it was surprising. It really was, and I really did love where they took this character. He did an incredible job. Tanner Buchanan, he's really great as Johnny's son Robbie, he's kind of like the absentee father. He just hasn't really had much of a role in Robbie's life. He was really great. And then Mary Mauser as well as Sam, Daniel's daughter. I thought she was really great. Really, everyone honestly did a really great job here. I was very impressed by most of the cast. Well, not everyone I thought was great. I will say, the friends of Sam, I really were not a fan of. I didn't really think they were very good actresses at all. And also someone who I also thought was very flat was Daniel's son, Anthony. Extremely annoying, and not in a sense where it's like, oh, he's, you know, the son and he's supposed to be. No, this kid was legitimately annoying, and I'm glad that he didn't have a lot of screen time, because I did think he was pretty bad. But other than him, I think everyone did a really great job, and I was very impressed with the cast here. But now let's get to the directing and the writing, which, similar to the acting, I was very surprised by. I thought for sure this would be a very cheesy, over-the-top show that just wasn't anything really that great. And maybe that's because of the network it's on. YouTube Red is not something I hold to very high of a standard at all. Most of their shows I've heard are incredibly disposable and just really stupid. But I gotta say, the directing here was really well done. What I really love about the show is how grounded in reality it really is. Because, sure, you do have some silly moments here and there, and the comedy actually is handled quite well, but the comedy is less of just these, you know, gag after gag, and more stemming from how ridiculous these two really are, and how they still have this feud going on, how Johnny is so out of touch when it comes to modern culture, how, you know, how tough he really is, how ridiculous he's really sounding, and I really did like that the show, you know, that the comedy was done like that. I think the comedy was really great, but the drama also, I thought, was actually very well handled. There are some very dramatic moments in this first season that I really didn't see coming, and I thought the tone was very well handled, but also the writing very much impressed me, because something I was very surprised by when it came to the show is how slow-paced this first season really was, which, if you watch the first two episodes, you really don't think it's going to be very slow-paced. Like I said, I saw the first two episodes, you know, in theaters, and I wasn't really a fan of the show at first, and that's mainly because of, you know, the first episode is revolved around Johnny's character, and he's not really that likable of a guy at first. He, like I said, he is very unapologetic. He doesn't care what he says to you. He even says some racist things to Miguel and things like that, and he doesn't really seem to care very much. And you get the sense that, like I said, he just hasn't really had much of a life, so he feels that this stuff is fine. He doesn't really understand how insensitive and how awful he really is being. It's as the show goes on that he becomes a lot better of a character, and I think from there they did a really good job. But Other than the first 2 episodes, like I said, I think the pacing was really great for this season, and especially when it comes to Daniel and Johnny. You would think that a lot of this show, since the main attraction is that these two are back, they'd have a lot of scenes together. They really don't. It's only episodes 2 and 9 where they have actually a lot to do here. The last few episodes, they do give them more, but it's not really about the rivalry going on with them. That is still a big part of this season, but like I said, it's more about them trying to, make up of past mistakes, with Johnny trying to make sure that Cobra Kai is reinstated and that people can take it seriously again, and Daniel trying to prevent Johnny from hurting, from toughening these kids in the way he did himself, and trying to help everyone else. And, you can definitely see where both of them are coming from, and I actually really did enjoy that. I thought that both their point of views made a lot of sense. You can definitely see where Johnny is coming from, in the sense that, like I said, he sees this as his purpose. He sees this as a thing that he needs to do. This is his destiny. He needs to turn Cobra Kai around. But you also see Daniel, where he just sees the villainous side of Cobra Kai, and he is very close-minded in that sense. He's not listening to anyone else who tells him, oh no, this isn't like that, Cobra Kai is much different now. He's not willing to listen to them, and I actually really did like where they went with both of their point of views. I thought that was definitely, like I said, very well fleshed out. And the relation between Miguel and Johnny, it's very different from that of Daniel and Mr. Miyagi. Mr. Miyagi was a very patient, he was a very caring man, and it's not that Johnny isn't, it's just very different, and that's something I like. They didn't try to rehash that relationship. Miguel, like I said, he's actually not interested at first, and Johnny gradually gets him more interested, and I really did enjoy getting into that. I thought the relationship was much different. It feels much less like a father and son type thing, and more like a brother sort of relationship. Like, he's the big brother that is giving him really terrible advice that Miguel takes literally, and where he ends up going, like I said, it really was pretty surprising, and I really did enjoy that overall. But I also really like the romance going on this season. There is a romance between Miguel and Daniel's daughter, Samantha, and it really isn't that forced, to be honest with you. I thought it was going to be very forced in the second episode, but it really isn't. You can see why he likes her. You can see that she is someone who, sure, she is the do-gooder. Sure, she does, she wants to make good decisions and things like that. She was brought up in a way where she's kind of hanging out with the wrong crowd, and as the season goes on, she starts to develop more of a bad rep, and Miguel always sees the good in her. He wants to take her out. He wants to be with her, and it honestly is really sweet. I actually really did like their relationship, and I thought it was very well fleshed out, and I really did enjoy it overall. Also, the Robbie character, like I said, when we get into who Johnny really is as a person, he hasn't really made the best choices, and Robbie is one of them. Like I said, Robbie is his son, who he just doesn't really have a relationship with, and where they end up going with him again was very unexpected. I did not expect them to go in the direction they did with the Robbie character, and I'm glad they did, because one of my complaints with this season is that a lot of these characters in the beginning, not only were they not that interesting, but I didn't really care about them. For example, Samantha as a character, I thought at first was just really annoying. She just seemed like the do-gooder who can't do a single thing wrong, and she's just always so nice, and nothing happens to her, and that goes away pretty quickly. They actually do flesh her out quite well, and I really did enjoy that. There is actually a nice plot involving her and Daniel and how he actually used to train her, and I very much did enjoy that. And Robbie as well, I really did not like at first, but as he goes on with Daniel, I really love where they took him as well. Also, if you guys are worried about this being disrespectful to the original film, it's definitely not. There are a copious amount of references to the original film. We even see clips from the original film frequently. It's not like we only see it in like one episode. Almost every episode, there's rarely one that goes by where we don't see a clip from, first movie, and I actually really did enjoy that they did that, because you see these characters are harkening back and they are grown up, but at the same time they're not going to forget the lessons that Miyagi and also Kreese taught them, and I really did enjoy seeing that overall. You know, I thought that was definitely very well done. There are some really great moments with Daniel and him kind of visiting Miyagi's grave, because Mr. Miyagi, we find out, has passed away, which of course they kind of had to do that because Pat Morita did die, but it's very well handled. I love the way that was done, and I thought that that was very well written. Like I said, though, some of Daniel's family I really was not a fan of. His wife at points I thought was just a little bit too shrill and bitchy and just didn't really work as well for me. As the show went on, I did think she got better, but at first I wasn't really a huge fan of her. Also, like I said, his son I thought was incredibly annoying, and he didn't really get better. He just stuck as the annoying, spoiled rich kid who expects to have everything, and he's just always annoying, and I didn't really see much more of a purpose for him. Honestly, we don't even really need this character. You could have cut him out, and I think the show would be the same. I don't really think we needed his son to be in there. I think we just really needed Samantha, and that would have been fine, because they don't really do anything with him as a character. But the cinematography here is actually really great. There are some really great visuals in the show that I really did enjoy. You know, the moments where they are in Cobra Kai, you actually really do feel the energy. You really do feel the weight, especially when it comes to the finale. I was surprised by how into it I really was, because again, I'm not usually one who's into this kind of stuff. I'm not really into sports movies and things like that, and I actually really did like the way they did that here. I thought, like I said, it was very well handled. I really did enjoy the cinematography. I thought the score also was really great. There's a lot of musical cues that if you're a huge fan of the Karate Kid films, you'll pick up right away and you will absolutely adore. There is a lot of nostalgic stuff in here, and I really enjoyed that. It never feels like fan service, though. It never feels overcrowded. There are moments that, like I said, you will definitely pick up on if you're a huge fan of the series, and I think they handled that quite well. The editing, I thought most of the episodes were very well paced. None of them really felt that overlong to me, and I really did enjoy it overall. But now I do want to get into some spoilers for Cobra Kai Season 1. So if you haven't seen this show, I honestly would recommend it. If you don't have a YouTube Red account, this is definitely worth it. You know, you pay the $10, you watch it, and then you get rid of it, because this is definitely a show that I don't really know why it's on YouTube Red, to be honest with you, but it really has put them on the map, and it has actually made them what they want to be. So I would definitely recommend checking it out. But first of all, let's talk about where Daniel ends up going with Robbie, because this is something I kept hidden in the spoilers. They don't really hint at this in the trailer or anything like that. Of course, Daniel basically ends up taking Robbie under his wing, and he kind of wants to finish the work that Miyagi started, and I really enjoyed seeing that. I like that Daniel was a bit lost in the first, 5 episodes, and he went to Miyagi's grave, and from then he decided, you know what, I'm going to start doing karate again. I'm going to start recruiting someone, and he sees Robbie, and he really wants to help him, and from there, I thought Robbie became a better character, because you see that Daniel is that father that he never really had. Sure, he wants Johnny, you can see, to be a father to him, but he kind of resents him. He doesn't really want anything to do with Johnny at the moment, and Daniel kind of, gives him that bond, and I really did enjoy that. I loved how they focused on the balance of it all, and contrasted with Johnny's more roughhouse style of Cobra Kai, I really did enjoy. And I think that was definitely, like I said, a really great contrast overall. I like that they both were getting involved in karate, and it's different stuff, though. Like I said, for Johnny, he starts off and he's basically just doing this for himself and not really for the betterment of others. Of course, as time goes on, he starts to get more attached to these kids, but for the most part, this is because he feels this is his destiny. And the more the season goes on, this clearly is more about him also trying to turn Cobra Kai around, because people don't really take it seriously. It has a very negative reputation because of all the stuff that happened in the third movie, and I haven't seen the third movie, but I think they actually factored that in quite well for fans of the third movie, and plus, it is canonical for what we've seen with the series so far, and I was actually very happy with what they did there. And for Daniel, he's doing this basically to carry on Miyagi's legacy and kind of, help this kid in the way that Miyagi did for him. And I really did enjoy that contrast overall. But what I thought was most surprising actually wasn't the fact that Johnny did, end up having a heart, because that's something we definitely expected. We expected that he would get attached to these kids. We expected that he would want to turn things around and that he started to bond with Daniel. What was most surprising was Miguel's transformation. I was not expecting him to go in the direction that he really did. I thought that he would definitely be more powerful from this, and I thought that he would be, he would definitely become a lot more sort of bold and be able to stand up for himself. I did not expect him to basically kind of become what Johnny was, and it makes sense because Johnny was giving him all this terrible advice, and Miguel was taking it completely at face value. He really wasn't seeing what Johnny was trying to tell him. He wasn't literally telling him to go punch Robbie out or anything like that, but that's exactly what Miguel ended up doing. And if we're going the direction I think we're going, I think Miguel's going to be a bit of a villain moving forward, and I'm honestly all for that. I'm really interested in seeing where they end up going with his character, and it was quite unexpected. I mean, sure, I did not expect for him and Sam to connect as much in this first season. I thought, basically he'd have an interest in Sam and it'd be like that will they, won't they sort of thing. But no, we already had them together in this first season, and I should have already picked up on that. I should have thought, oh, this is already happening. Maybe this isn't going to go the way I think, and it really didn't. I mean, Miguel, he's incredibly power hungry, and he doesn't really care about what happens to him. We see in that final fight when he's with Robbie, he's willing to destroy him. He's willing to do whatever he can, no mercy whatsoever. And you see at that moment that Johnny doesn't want that anymore. He doesn't want him to have that same agenda that Kreese taught him. And I really did enjoy seeing that overall. And I'm very interested in seeing where they do end up going, especially when it comes to the ending of this season, where basically, Cobra Kai does end up winning, which that wasn't surprising. I mean, you kind of knew that was the direction they were going to go in. But you see that Johnny, he actually apologizes to Robbie. He's trying to make up with him. He actually wants to turn things around, seeing if, maybe he can make things right with Robbie. And I'm thinking moving forward that that's going to be a big theme next season, is how he does turn things around with Robbie, if the two of them can be, if the two of them can actually have that father-son relationship. But you see Robbie, he's not, while he is interested, Daniel is still not forgiving towards Johnny at all. He just feels like he's roughhoused all these kids, which he very much has. But you see that he does want to turn things around. He actually wants to make Cobra Kai something better. He doesn't want this to be a place of just violence anymore. He wants this to be a little bit more balanced. But then once we got to the very end, where we see that not only is Daniel going to continue training Robbie under his tutelage and things like that, but that he's actually going to open up his own sort of dojo. It's going to be, Miyagi's, basically karate for students, and I'm very interested in seeing really where that's going to go. And then the ending where we see Johnny, he's at that bar, he's kind of down his luck because you can see that he wishes that he would have done things differently. He wishes that these kids hadn't gone dark, and we see out of the shadows is none other than John Kreese, who all this time we thought was dead. No, he is still very much alive. Kreese is probably going to try to one-up Johnny, and this is especially going to become interesting for Miguel, because again, he very much is going dark. He very much is very, like I said, set on just destroying Robbie, and we can see that Kreese is probably going to lead him down that dark path, while Johnny's going to try to turn things around. I'm very interested in seeing where they're going to go from here, and I think it honestly is a very interesting cliffhanger that is way more riveting than I ever could have expected it to be. I never would have expected them to take as many liberties with the source material as they did, but they really went all out here, and this is honestly a very compelling cliffhanger, and really makes me interested in seeing where they can go with the show in Season 2. Also with Sam, she's totally going to become part of Daniel's dojo for sure. We saw at the end that she is in fact still, she is definitely getting more into the karate. She wants to get back into it, and I'm interested in seeing if she's going to go to Cobra Kai, or is she going to go to Daniel's dojo where Aisha is, because you can see that she did make amends with Aisha. I'm interested in seeing really where they do go with that overall. Also, something else I thought the show did really well is where they ended up going with Allie, because obviously she was a big part of the first movie, but we didn't really see it the way that we thought we did. I mean, we always thought that Johnny was just this, oh, he was just this dickish guy, and that he was just, you know, she was just rejecting his advances pretty much. But it turns out that's not the case, of course. As we found out, Johnny and Allie actually did have a genuine connection. They actually did have this relationship. Daniel's actually the guy who stole Allie from him, and you can see that he very much regrets not only that, but also how he acted. He knows that if he had acted a little bit better, and if he wasn't as much of a dick as he really was, then maybe they'd still be together. And I don't know if this is setting up the fact that Allie's going to return in the show or whatever, but I really love what they did with that. And again, they didn't beat you over the head with it. This is obviously something that Johnny's going to think about. You know, he doesn't really have much of a life. The only relationship that we think he had is the one with, you know, Robbie's mother, and that clearly didn't go well at all. So it would make sense that he's thinking about Allie, and I'm very interested in seeing where they do actually end up going with that in season 2, because I think that is definitely a very interesting place to take the show overall. But like I said, guys, Cobra Kai is easily one of the most surprising shows I have seen all year. It's easily the most surprising show of the entire summer. I really did not expect much from this, to be honest with you, but this was a very damn good first season. It had some really great character dynamics. It has some really great performance overall, and it really does humanize the character of Johnny Lawrence, especially in a way that you really would not expect them to, and it makes me very interested in seeing really where they do go with the show in season 2. I really enjoyed this first season overall, and I am going to give Cobra Kai season 1 an A-. But over, guys, to my review of Cobra Kai Season 1. Let me know what you guys saw of the season overall. Love your thoughts in it. Are you a fan of the Karate Kid movies? If you're not, I'd say at least watch the first one, because I think this is definitely worth your time. Did you enjoy the season overall? But that's it for my review. Hope you guys enjoy. We'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.